Has anybody ever asked you, how do you know what day the Sabbath is? Well, this short video hopefully will help you answer that question. Shalom, welcome to Rob on the Rock. I'm Rob Van Hoff, and I wanted to make a short video addressing a question I recently received. It's a question I get from time to time from different people who are trying to understand the calendar issues. The specific question is, how do we know what day is the Sabbath? There are different streams of people out there that seem to believe that the Sabbath is to be counted from the new moon. Exactly how that's to be done is not agreed upon by any means by such folk, but I just want to take some time to carefully go over this. The Sabbath is not determined from the new moon. It is actually an independent cycle. The origin of the idea, at least as I can surmise, that the Sabbath is to be counted from the new moon comes from secular Jewish scholars in the 19th century who were trying to tie the emergence of ancient Israelite religion to what they knew from Babylon, so ancient Babylonian religion and calendars. And they tried to argue that what we have in the ancient Israelite Torah is an amalgamation of things that were taken from Babylon and adjusted. And so it was in that case that they thought that the ancient Israelites observed the Sabbaths as a seventh day counted from the new moon. Well, I want to argue that's not the case. If you believe the scriptures are divine revelation, then you wouldn't go down that path in the first place to look to these quote, scientists trying to argue that it's man's creation and then trying to explain how they derived this meaningful day as not revelation, but as polemic against the Babylonians. Well, if you're interested in believing that as your framework, then that's fine. Have fun with that. But if you believe the scriptures are revealed, that creation is a miracle and that God communicated his law to his people supernaturally, then you're going to read it a different way. And that's the way I'm going to approach it right now. And the first case we know is from creation. From basically Genesis 1. What do we learn in Genesis 1 is that God created the world in 6 days and he rested on the seventh. This goes into chapter 2 also. And God set apart, he sanctified the seventh day because on it he rested from all the work that he had made. So the establishment of the Shabbat, of the seventh day Sabbath, has nothing to do with anything in creation. It has no reference point within creation. Its reference point is the words spoken by the Holy One at the creation itself. And so the seventh day Sabbath is a memorial of his sanctification of the seventh day and his creation of all time and space. It's with reference to his creative activity coming to a completed whole in his own wisdom, in his own time, with reference to nothing outside himself but his own will. That's the core of the Shabbat. But if Genesis 1 is perhaps only one witness, we can look at also at Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23 is a short rehearsal or an overview of the feasts of the Lord. And at the beginning of Leviticus 23 is the Sabbath day. Is the remembrance of the Sabbath day. And what do we see here? Nothing about a new moon, but the Sabbath day. That's important. No mention of the new moon. When we come to our third point in the book of Numbers 28, we are given, well, it's actually 28 and 29, but 28 is the one we're interested in here, is we are given the overview again in much more detail with respect to different offerings that are commanded pertaining to each of the feasts of the Lord. And indeed, here we find the new moon commanded to be celebrated. However, the Sabbath is given first. So in Numbers 28, we learn about the Sabbath day again. And only after the command for the Sabbath day is given do we learn about the new moon command. And again, this is because the new moon is independent. The cycles of the moon are independent of the cycles of the sevens, which go all the way back, resonating from creation itself. I could insert, I guess if I wanted to move these down, we could modify this a little bit, and I could change this to 3 and 4, and we could, since we did Genesis, we might as well do Exodus, surrounding the instructions for the Mishkan at Mount Sinai. If you look, you see time and again, multiple times, the commandment to keep the Sabbath day, the commandment to keep the Sabbath day. That is crucial. And so these should all be sufficient. These should all be sufficient for us to understand that the new moon is never the source point from which we are to count to discover Sabbath days. The only reference that we see for the new moon would be like if we look at Numbers 28 and 29, those things that come after the new moon in the list, such as counting from the first of the month, the 14th of the month for Pesach, and then the 15th of the first month on for Chag HaMatzot, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Or in the 7th month, the first day is a Shabbaton, it says a special Sabbath day. And then you count to the 15th. And from the 15th on, you have the 7 days of Sukkot, and then you have the 8th day. These, of course, are counted from, and I didn't even mention the 10th day of the 7th month. These are counted, of course, from the new moon. The feasts of the Lord in the spring and the feasts of the Lord in the 7th month in the fall. But the Shabbat is independent of this. But the 5th point, too, if none of these are sufficient for you, there's just no record. No record of any ancient Jews observing the Sabbaths as if they came from each new moon, as if each Sabbath was commanded to be counted from the new moon. You can look at the ancient Jewish writings that are in Greek, ancient Jewish writings that are in Aramaic, ancient Jewish writings that are in the Hebrew language, such as found at the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, by all means, we do know that Second Temple Jewish sectarian groups did argue about the calendar. They did have disagreements about the calendar, but not what day the Sabbath was. They didn't argue about what day the Sabbath was. And none of them counted Sabbaths from the new moon. No, they all agreed. Even the enemies of Israel knew which day the Sabbath was. We read that in the book of Maccabees, how there were Gentiles that wanted to attack Jews on the Sabbath day. Why? Because they knew that Jews wouldn't be accustomed to fighting back to defend themselves. It was a day of national vulnerability. So even Israel's enemies knew which day the Sabbath was. So friends, if someone's trying to teach you that the Sabbath, the 6-day Sabbath, the 7th-day Sabbath after 6 days, and that repeated cycle that we go way back in time knowing that everybody knows what day the Sabbath is, if they're trying to say that you're deceived or that somehow, the whole world is wrong or there was some sort of collective amnesia where everybody forgot, stay away from that teaching. That's wrong and it's misguided. And it's misleading people. So stick to the truth, keep to the scriptures, and know that the Sabbath day comes all the way from creation, and it is completely independent of the cycles of the moon. Shalom.